Netflix's Romantic Killer is a psychological horror. Was that catchy enough? Do I have your attention yet? God, I hope so. But it's not clickbait, I swear. In fact, I'm deadly serious about this, and I'll have content warnings throughout the video as the anime takes on unexpectedly heavier subject matters. So I was browsing Netflix, as one does, and Romantic Killer was featured for me. It looked interesting enough, so I did what any self-respecting anime watcher does. I looked it up on my anime list to see if it was any good. To my surprise, it had a score of over an 8, which on my anime list means it's really good. Now, if you clicked on this video and you haven't seen the show, let me read the synopsis to you. When gamer Anzu gets transported to a world of hot guys, it's like she's in a dream. Someone else's dream. High schooler Anzu Hoshino has a great life. Every day, she plays video games, pigs out on snacks, and pets her beloved cat. But this blissful existence is turning into a confusing mess when a magical creature transports her to an altered reality, bereft of her favorite things. Now, she's stuck with hot guys instead. How can she possibly survive in such an awful world? Anzu must play along in this altered reality before she can return to her normal life, so she begrudgingly makes friends with Tsukasa Kazuki. He unfortunately happens to be one of the hottest and most popular guys at school, and what's worse, she realizes that he might not even be that bad of a person. Okay, so interesting enough. I've never watched anything like this, so let's give it a shot. From this point on, we're entering spoiler territory, so if you don't want to give the show a watch without any, click off this video and come back after you're done. I'll know, by the way, when you don't come back. I'll be really sad. You don't want that on your conscience, do you? If you're still here by now, you either already watched the show or you want to know what the hell I'm talking about when I say that this anime is a psychological horror. Without further ado, let's start with... Very quickly, we are introduced to Riri, a wizard from a magical world whose job is to be Anzu's fucked up Cupid. Because apparently, the magic world can't stand that she's perfectly happy not engaging in romance of any kind. Now, I'm sure that this doesn't need to be said, but it's okay to be single. People choose to be single all the time. Arrow Ace people also exist, but whatever, plot. So Riri takes all of her favorite things, which includes video games, chocolate, her cat, and also mind controls her parents to make them fuck off to the States. Yes! You heard me correctly. It is also explained that when Anzu's interacting with the wizard in front of other people, that they are placed under a spell where they see an illusion of something normal happening instead. All to force Anzu to engage with... hot guys. We finally start getting to the meat of the show when Anzu runs into this guy at a grocery store. She opens the door to leave, which naturally hits this guy's phone, causing it to fly 20 feet into the air and crashing into the pavement. You know, a totally likely thing to happen. So she busts his phone, apologizes profusely, and bounces. Turns out this guy's the most popular guy at her school. Anyway, towards the end of the episode, Anzu finds a roach in her home, panics, and runs out of her house without any of her shit. Honestly, same. It begins to rain because, of course it does, and the first hottie Tsukasa arrives at the scene. Turns out, Tsukasa lives nearby and offers Anzu his umbrella, classic trope. Anzu, my hero, denies it because she refuses to be toyed with by old Riri. In any case, they work it out and Anzu is invited over to Tsukasa's apartment to get out of the rain. She reveals to him that she ran away from home because of her roach, and he... laughs? Oh my goodness, he's a whole person. So he offers to get rid of the roach for her, which the anime stylizes as cake because it's unsightly. Cute touch. When Tsukasa tries to leave after the hit against the roach, it begins to storm outside and he is nearly impaled by a tree. Now you must be thinking, son of a bitch, isn't that convenient? You're correct in thinking so, because this is yet another ploy by the all-powerful wizard Riri. They are strong enough to summon a storm and has enough precision to make sure that while it is still super fucked up storm with the capability of killing people with flying debris, no one will actually be harmed. Who the fuck is this guy? Get them on death battle. I need Wiz and Boomstick to tell me how many gigatons of TNT Riri can generate. So Tsukasa is forced to stay the night, and for the rest of the episode, Riri absolutely flexes on Anzu by using their magic to make sure she loses at the game of life. The board game. All this, of course, is still for the sake of forcing Anzu into a romantic scenario, but Anzu, again, my hero, stands against the tide and tries to make herself as unattractive as possible. Still, it's hard to fight against an omnipotent wizard, so of course Ryu gets their way in the end, go figure. This episode is largely Anzu and by extension us as the audience getting to know about Tsukasa as a person. He's actually a pretty chill guy and hates how much attention he gets from other people, particularly women, who only approach him because they want some fuck. Well, when these two girls overhear that Anzu knows Tsukasa, they just jump her and confidently act like they're friends, to which Anzu sadly folds. They follow her to their meeting spot and Tsukasa grabs Anzu and dips, telling the girls off that he only wanted to hang out with her. Now, this is played like it's a really sweet thing to do, but please, don't do this in real life. Don't just randomly grab someone and begin manhandling them away. You'll notice this happens a lot in the show. Don't do this, it's weird. Can you imagine just being like, I am done with where I am, and just grabbing your significant other and walking, with no regard to their own feelings? Now imagine if they weren't your significant other. It's weird. Anyway, they're walking outside and Tsukasa tells Anzu that he has no intention of dating anyone right now, which is like music to our hero's ears. Anzu assures Tsukasa that she's in the same boat, and the two are happy to be friends. Now, if you consume media of any kind that has romance in it, then you know that this is the part where you stand at the dock and watch a ship begin to sail. Tsukasa gets a phone call from his real estate agent, he lives alone, remember? And is told that his apartment is completely flooded and that there are no other apartments available at this time. Yes, the wizard is responsible for this too. So Tsukasa asks Anzu if he can stay with her until he finds a place in exchange for him doing household chores and cooking their meals. He's a pretty baller cook, so Anzu agrees. The next day, as Anzu and Tsukasa get ready for school, another hot boy stranger appears at her home and claims to be her childhood friend.
Have you seen this man?
Who is this person? Anzu does not know this guy. Did Riri conjure him from the ether? Did they brainwash some random kid and rewrite his whole life and memory? We don't know. And watching the show is filling me with so much existential dread as this potato-shaped wizard gaslights our heroine with their godlike powers. Anyway, here's what we know about this new character that's important. His name is Junta, he's hot, and he has a crush on Anzu. We get to know Junta more this episode, just like how last episode was largely getting to know Tsukasa. Turns out Junta's a pretty chill guy. Wait, I'm getting deja vu here. Junta is characterized as the typical tropey childhood friend. He's had a huge crush on her since middle school, everyone knows because it's super obvious, he's like the nicest guy, you know how this goes. Hey, remember those two girls from last episode that just inserted themselves into the narrative? Yeah, they're back. They take Anzu aside and ask her to set them up with Tsukasa since she's not interested in dating him, and Anzu tells them to fuck off, she's not gonna do that because she's a good friend. Tsukasa and Junta are eavesdropping the whole time, and right before they can intervene, another new character is introduced, and they are... oh god.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
I'm not going to forgive Riri even if you turn them into a waifu. They are so unlikable and have been trying to force our main character into a romance she doesn't want. It's all for the sake of having her experience love? But it's a moot point if she's not into it and is being strong-armed by literal magic, no? But I digress. While Riri is taking on these human forms, other people can actually see them, so they pretend like Riri's Anzu's cousin. Now, if you've ever played D&D before, stealing a wizard's spellcasting focus is a pretty good way to get them to stop casting magic, and Anzu is an absolute gamer. She steals Riri's wand, and when Riri tries to get it back, it falls in literal dookie, which makes it unusable. Apparently can't cast magic if it's dirty. How specific. At this point, I'm going to put a content warning. If you're surprised by this, don't worry, I was too. I was not expecting any such content when I began watching the show, but here we are. I guess compared to what comes later, this is pretty tame, but if anyone's uncomfortable with the following subject matter, please skip ahead to the following timestamps or stop watching here, and I thank you for your time. If you're still with me, let's begin talking about the second half of the show. So, in the middle of the night, Anzu wakes up to strange noises in her home. When she goes to investigate, a strange man has broken in and is stealing her mother's underwear? What? This part is played for laughs, and I don't know, it's really fucking weird. The pervert jumps out the window and runs away, but luckily Junta arrives at the scene and chases him down. Junta catches the guy, and Anzu arrives with a police officer who we assume promptly arrests that man. Junta's mother hears about this incident and, worrying about Anzu, sends her son to live with her as well. Yes, this is another scheme by a resident wizard. Holy shit.
まさかこんなことになるとは。いやー、なんて楽しみなんでしょう。手下着だろう、お前の差し金だろう。もちろんだ。お母さんも当然のようにオッケーしたし。下着狙われるなんて私もまだまだいけるのかしらん。
Riri confirms that they sent the pervert. What the fuck? Hello? It's apparently to get them into a romantic situation, but you don't need to create a traumatic experience to have that. Also, if you have the powers that you do, why did you feel the need to do this rather than literally anything else? It's like when people think that depression is what inspires artists. It doesn't. Now you just have a sad and unmotivated artist. Trauma isn't a catalyst for romance. Trauma is just that, trauma. Love comes from feelings of safety and security. Let's not get it twisted. Anyway, we get a scene where a coworker of Tsukasa's touches his arm and he immediately shakes them off. But when Anzu does so when he gets home, he's actually not uncomfortable with it. Just a rare instance of showing rather than telling in an anime like this that I wanted to point out. The next day, Tsukasa wants to do some clothes shopping and invites Anzu to come with him. When she gets ready, she gets into this outfit. Now, the show wants you to think that this is lame, but I don't know, I think it's fine. I like it. So Riri appears to give Anzu new clothes. When Anzu talks back, Riri says, "Talk to me like that, and I'll throw away your favorite clothes." You've already taken away her parents, her hobbies, and even her chocolates. You can't just let her have this one? Anzu gives in and is dressed up properly, whatever that means. They go out, and at one point, Anzu leaves Tsukasa alone. While he is, people just can't stop gawking at him because he's just so hot, and for the first time, we see that it's more than just a pet peeve for him. It's heavily implied that there's something deeper going on and makes him extremely uncomfortable when women stare at him. Then we get this scene.
もっと空いてるところにすればよかった。戻ってこい。頼むから俺に関わるな。見るな。
This is a horror anime. You were tricked. This is such a shift in tone for the show, and this isn't even the last time it's going to happen. After that horrifying scene, the show just returns to normal. I can't be the only one that finds that weird. And then at the end of the episode, we're introduced to yet another hot boy. This one's rich.
Money, I go. Money, I go.
Not gonna lie, I don't know this character's name. He has one. I'm not gonna learn it. After this episode, this character is hardly relevant. He's often referred to as the prince though, so let's go with that. Anzu's nearly hit by the prince's car, and as an apology, the chauffeur and prince take her to school. By the way, this rich kid goes to the same school as her because, of course he does. Prince is your typical pompous rich boy who looks down on peasants. In fact, he even calls Anzu a commoner. But for whatever reason, he decides to hit her up a few days after to talk shop. So Anzu waits for him, and he pulls up late and is like, "Oh, have you been camping all night waiting for me? Yuck." He then judges her fit as being too poor for his liking, so he shoves her into the car so they can get her dressed up and says this cringy line.
特別にこの僕が君をシンデレラにしてあげるよ。
I am disgusted, but at least that's the reaction the anime wants you to have this time, unlike episode 5. Now, at this point, Anzu is reasonably confused about why he made her change, and he tells her it's because she looks sloppy for their date. Apparently, he thought that she jumped in front of his car to get his attention, so he decided to give it to her. Why would you ever think that? Who does that? He acts like he's being a saint by giving her a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go on a date with him because she's a what?
Hoi polloi.
Oh, I learned something new today. Anzu's rightfully disturbed and tells him to pull over so she can be literally anywhere else. She gets out and takes off the earrings and even her shoes and throws them in the car, telling Prince that she's not interested and walks home barefoot. Yes! God, I love this character. So, of course, Prince is shocked by this turn of events. After all, who in their right mind would reject him, right? Anzu continues to fight her destiny in this supposed romance anime. By the way, the anime is really self-aware about it actually being a comedy, but you and I both know the truth. This is still a psychological horror. As the show progresses, I still can't help but think about how everything that is happening is just this evil wizard's scheme. I'm fully convinced that everyone around Anzu is brainwashed. This feels like an inverse Truman Show where it's all the actors around the main character who don't know that they're all part of the wizard's production. Anyway, Prince is pretty determined to make Anzu fall for him because, hey, a challenge for him for once. I hope there aren't people like this in real life. That's super gross behavior. He pulls up to her house with gifts of video games, chocolate, and cats. All the things that Riri took away from her in episode 1. Except, you know, her actual pet cat and her parents. But wait, how did he know that these were all her favorite things?
てか、なんで私の好きなもの知ってんの？
僕に不可能はない。
いや、ちゃんと答えろ。
Yeah, never actually find out. Riri pulls Anzu aside now and gives her an ultimatum. She can only accept the gifts if she plans on falling in love with Prince. Not even like commits to dating, specifically falling in love. Which is like, how do you plan for that? Also, she's in high school. Can anyone confidently say that they've fallen in love in high school? Do you even have enough experience at that point to know what romantic love is? I don't know. Maybe I'm the weird one. But hell yeah, Anzu's my absolute hero and puts Riri in their place with this banger of a line.
あんた人間のこと分かってなさすぎ。不自然な出会いを作ったり、感情を操ったり、挙句は物で釣ろうなんて。バカにすんな。
Need I say more? Anzu returns all the gifts and basically tells him that she isn't his monkey. After, we get this flashback from Junta of a childhood memory with Anzu, where we learn that she's just always been this cool, even as a kid. Now, the question here is, are these memories real? We still have no idea what is or isn't manufactured by Riri. Anzu had no idea who this guy even was when he showed up back in episode 4. For the rest of the episode, Prince basically tries to be a real human being and learn the commoner ways. By the end, it seems like they've come to understand each other. Hooray!
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
At the start of the episode, Anzu gets bumped into by this guy, who gets really aggressive. And then we're introduced to a new character again, but this time, it's not a guy, but a gal. She does queen shit and puts the guy in her place before Anzu gets in on the action as well. Then we get this scene.
はい、大丈夫です。ありがとうございます。惚れてまうやろ。こういう時どういう顔すればいいのかわからない。
Oh, it all makes sense now. Anzu's just into women. She didn't know it. This never actually gets explored and is mostly played off for laughs, but that's my headcanon. Anyway, turns out this lady is Arisa, Tsukasa's older sister. They all meet up at Anzu's house and begin talking shop. We learn that Arisa and their mother have been meaning to reach out for a while, and it seems like they have a pretty good relationship with Tsukasa. So the question is, why isn't he living with them?
うちの父親がクソだから。
We also learn that Tsukasa wasn't always this aloof guy. He was actually really outgoing until an incident in middle school. They don't actually say what it is here, but we already have an idea from episode 6. By the way, it is episode 8 out of 12, and we're finally getting some backstory on hot guy number 1. So they discuss Tsukasa's living arrangements, and Anzu's actually happy to let him stay indefinitely because she's been enjoying this new normal of living with him and Junta. It's pretty clear that Anzu means this in the most platonic way possible, and even this far into the show, she still has shown no interest in romance. Much like a shonen protagonist, she's written largely as an asexual character, and honestly, I'd prefer if they just kept it that way. And just when we thought we were safe, the Fire Nation attacked. That's right, Riri appears once again to remind you that we're still watching a horror anime, and they drop this line on us.
少子化問題対策としてあんずちゃんにロマンティックキラリンの主人公みたいな乙女芸生活をプレゼントしたのに全く恋愛の進展がないなんて
This is all a measure against the declining birth rate in Japan? Yuck! So this really has nothing to do with love at all. They're just trying to strong-arm her into having children? A high school girl. This is disgusting. None of the rest of the episode feels like it matters, at least not to me. Riri takes on a male human appearance this time and convinces Anzu to go on a date with them in exchange for a cat hoodie. Obviously, there's nothing the wizard does that doesn't have an ulterior motive. Riri is doing this just to stir up drama between her and all love interests. However, we do get this one great chat between them.
それでも目先の欲にくらむのが人間だと思ってましたが、
目先の欲にくらむのも別にいいんじゃない？柔軟で。人の考えなんてそれぞれだし。でも私は人一倍頑固なタイプだから。大事なものは自分で取り返す。覚悟してな。
Anzu is genuinely such a great and mature character, which seems few and far between in not just anime, but shows in general these days.
Are you a ghost? Speak, apparition.
I have very little to say for this episode. It's a lot like episode 7, which yes, I actually had a lot to say about in retrospect, but we're basically introduced to Anzu's childhood friends. There is one majorly important thing from this episode though. We learn that Junta is a real person, and he is in fact Anzu's childhood friend. She just didn't remember him because they called him Tonta back then for some unexplained reason. I guess it was his nickname. Obviously, she confronts the wizard about this, and they're like, oh, I never said I manipulated anyone. You're just a bad friend for not remembering. Riri, you're a gaslighting son of a bitch. So, yeah, turns out Junta is a whole-ass person, and all the memories are real, down to his feelings for Anzu. The wizard explains that they can't use magic to manipulate feelings, otherwise they just force Anzu to sleep with any guy. They're doing this for the declining birth rate, after all. Ugh. Once again, I'm going to put up a content warning. The subject matter is a lot heavier than previously discussed in episode 5. For the next 3 episodes, Romantic Killer takes a hard shift in tone. Up until this point, the anime carries itself as a romantic comedy and largely plays everything up for laughs, even with the more disturbing things I've already brought up. However, from here on out, the laughs kind of stop, and the material at hand is much darker than what you're led to believe going into the show. Much like the show itself, this video is going to take a tone shift as well as we discuss these heavier topics. So if any of the following subjects are too uncomfortable for your liking, thanks for sticking around, and I hope to see you next video. For everyone else still with me this far, let us rest at the bonfire before continuing our journey. So in episode 10, Saki comes by to stay with Anzu for the night. Saki is Anzu's best friend, who actually was around since episode 1, but I haven't talked about her at all until now because she honestly hasn't been relevant until now. Anyway, Saki basically came to stay the night because her brother has friends over while their dad is working, and she's kicked out since they're drinking. While they have a moment to themselves, Anzu finally tries to tell her best friend about what's going on with this wizard situation, but magic prevents her from spilling the beans. Naturally. This leads into a flashback sequence where Saki is thinking about what a great friend Anzu is. When they were a little younger, this guy named Mori asked her out and basically said he would take things at her pace. She's not at all interested in this guy, but he seems nice enough and she felt bad that she keeps rejecting him. Yes, he keeps asking her out despite how many times she's given a clear no. Now, I'm sure I don't need to be telling you, the viewer, this, but you don't owe anyone your feelings. I see this all the time where people say, hey, why not give them a chance, they're so sweet, but fuck that noise. If you're not feeling it, if you don't want to, then that's all the reason you need. You don't owe them anything, not even an explanation on why you're rejecting them. The answer is just no. Now, I'm sure this is very obvious for you and I, but it's not to Mori here. One day, while they're studying, we get this scene.
ちゃんと答えを出さないと。先輩、ちょっと待ってください。
どうして？ああ、さきちゃんまだ子供だから知らないのかな。男の家に来るってことは
そういうの OK ってことなんだよ。
違う。私は勉強しに来たんです。もうお試しは終わりです。さようなら。はっきり分かった。恋なんてしてない。怖かったし気持ち悪かった。
Yeah, this is very bad. This is very, very not good. This is by far the most disturbing and disgusting thing we've seen in the show so far, and I wish I could say that this is where it ends. There's more trauma awaiting us, and it just feels really out of place for what was supposed to be an unassuming rom-com. But hey, we remember what the title of this video is, right? So after that happens, everyone around Saki is telling her that she's a bad person for hitting Mori, but Anzu's the only one who stands up for her and is on her side, which is why they're best friends. Later in the episode, our cast enjoy themselves at a festival when Saki runs into Mori again, which triggers an acute stress response, more familiarly known as fight or flight or freeze. In this case, Saki freezes, but fortunately, Tsukasa's best friend, Makoto, notices and makes up an excuse so they can leave. Seeing that she's frozen, he pulls her away from the situation. Now, this is different from the forced grabbing I mentioned in episode 3, where Tsukasa drags Anzu with him out of nowhere. Once they're far away enough, Makoto lets her go, apologizes, explains why he did that, and checks in with her. When she apologizes to him instead, he reassures her. It's important to note here that he does not expect anything more from her, does not pry, and brings the attention back to having a good time at the festival, giving her the choice to speak more about what happened if she wished. From this single scene, I think that Makoto is the best written male character in the show, and it's a shame that he hardly gets any screen time. Now, I'm sorry to say that we're returning to disturbing territory. Anzu takes a picture at the festival, and then we get this scene right before the end of the episode.
見つけた。司くん。
Uh-oh. Sometime after the festival, this lady named Yukana Kishi appears before Anzu and claims to be Tsukasa's girlfriend. Anzu's naturally skeptical because she surely would have heard about this since they lived together. Not to mention that Kishi is also saying really creepy things and claiming that people are trying to stop their love and keep them apart. Then she reveals that she finally found Tsukasa because of Anzu's picture, where he just happened to be in the background. So yeah, we have a full-on stalker here. Is your skin crawling yet? How about I play this clip? Yeah, gone is the romantic comedy, this is fully a psychological drama. Safe for the time being, Tsukasa feels comfortable enough to tell Anzu about his trauma. We learn that this lady has been stalking him since he was in middle school, and that she's also a full adult. So not only is she a stalker, but she's a predator. It gets worse as she continues to stalk him, leaving him gifts at his house, pretending to be him on social media to drive away the people around him, and it's heavily implied that she drugs him and breaks into his home to have this moment.
司くん、テレーさんだもんね。やっぱり周りの目気になっちゃうよね。毎日会ってくれるから言葉は交わせなくても我慢できるけど、私だけの司くん、他の人たち邪魔だね。
As if that weren't enough, she's also installed cameras and voice recorders in his home, which Tsukasa's father blames him, the victim, rather than the abuser Kishi. This is what leads to Tsukasa leaving his home to live elsewhere with the help of his mother and sister. He blames himself for picking up Kishi's bag for her, which led to the stalking. No one should have to feel guilt for doing a good thing. The behavior of others shouldn't prevent us from being good people. That being said, there's nothing wrong with prioritizing your own mental health and safety. Now, I'm by no means a professional, but if any of this is resonating with you because it hits close to home, I provided links down in the description below. I hope those resources are helpful to you. Talking about the episode again, Arisa contacted the police regarding the stalker, and in retaliation, Kishi sends these men to deal with Anzu while she walks home after work. Fortunately, all of Anzu's friends arrive just in time to deal with the criminals. This is thanks to Riri finally doing something good, using their magic to send messages to each of her friends. Apparently, this is the best they can do because wizards are only allowed to use their magic for the sake of helping their case fall in love. Now, this is a bad reason because you'll later see that wizards can be pretty fast and loose with the rules and stretch that meaning. Anzu even points out that if the stalker situation continues, she'll be in danger, which is not exactly great for this whole romance thing. Rather than seeing this as a good reason to use magic to get rid of the stalker, Riri says that if it persists, that they'll just drop Tsukasa. Obviously, this does not sit well with Anzu, and she dirties the wand again. Next day, Anzu's on her way home again when... Luckily, our protagonist is not dead. Kishi slashed Anzu across the head and seems fully prepared to murder a high school girl. Riri, having their wand disabled, is unable to use their magic to help, so they're forced to look for her on foot. Riri, Tsukasa, Arisa, and Prince look for Anzu and luckily manage to find her just in time. Tsukasa bursts into action and tells her off, but Kishi's truly delusional, continuing to convince herself that they're in love. Anzu, mustering up every bit of strength, rushes to her friend's defense, and just as the police arrive, she faints from blood loss. Later, Anzu is released from the hospital where all her friends and Tsukasa's family is waiting. Tsukasa's father is present and chastises his son, but Anzu proves herself yet again as an amazing friend and defends Tsukasa from his father. The anime comes to a close. Anzu's parents are finally back home, and she has access to all of her favorite things again, which seems to imply that Riri has lifted the spell, even though Anzu hasn't fallen in love. As we turn out, Riri used their magic to punish Kishi, who seems to be in a psychiatric ward for her actions. However, in doing so, Riri broke the rule that they were not allowed to use magic for any other reason other than helping their case fall in love. As a result, Kate the Wizard is assigned to her case instead, and Riri is punished for their actions. Anzu won't stand for it and argues that, however slim, the potential that she falls in love with Riri exists, so Kate must allow Riri to live on Earth with them, which is deemed acceptable. And then, we return to the status quo. Kind of. Now the cast seems to be fully aware of the magic surrounding Anzu, and they fully accepted it, even though it was purposefully manipulative. Romantic Killer is a messy anime, but it was one that I enjoyed. I'm not sure if the showrunners intended this direction for the show, where it completely shifts gears at episode 10 from a romantic comedy to a psychological drama. It's as if episodes 1 through 9 and episodes 10 through 12 were directed by different people. While I liked what we had here, particularly the hilarious slapstick, fantastic use of the medium, and overall great animation, I worry for any watchers who jump into the show believing it to be an unassuming romantic comedy through and through. After all, its promotional material presents itself as this happy rom-com. Much like myself, new viewers won't know what they're getting themselves into, and that could be to the show's detriment if viewers want something lighthearted and then get blindsided. But hey, it seems like people really enjoy the show. After all, it does have an 8 on my anime list, and many comments on its promotional materials are quite positive, demanding a second season. With the way the show ended, it does leave it open to a sequel, and if it does have one, I'll definitely be watching it. If you watched this far, please like and subscribe. It would help the channel a lot. And of course, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.